Hello, Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here, and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the series where I get to speak to you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections, finding out what got you into collecting in the first place, and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. Okay, so who is the guest on this week's episode? Why don't we all find out? Let's take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Okay, yet again, another absolutely fantastic collection, and I am loving the lighting that he uses for his display. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the channel Luke Reynolds from Reynolds Reviews. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Stu. Thank you. How are you?
I'm absolutely awesome, mate. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. Really much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you for asking me.
No, absolute pleasure. I mean, I know it was a while back I asked and stuff like that, but we eventually get round to it in the end. So you're saying off camera, you know roughly the gist of the conversation. Yeah. I've got 10 questions for you. It's all about you and your collection. So, like I say, take your time with the questions. No rush. Run time normally an hour. We can go over if needed. So not an issue. So I'll crack on with the first question.
Yeah, fire
What are
away.
your childhood memories and what toy lines were you into?
Strangely, my childhood memories, I've got the scattered. I don't have particularly really vivid and numerous ones. They're quite sort of few and far between, but the ones I do have are quite sort of particular. Now I remember I was a big Star Wars collector when I first started collecting around 11 years ago. Star Wars was my focus. I've always sort of watched the movies, grown up with the movies. So Star Wars was very much the main focus of my collection. But when I think back, I don't remember playing with Star Wars anywhere near as much as I do various other toy lines. So the main one I remember playing with was Mask, hence my sort of obsession with Mask. But my childhood, well, I say it was my childhood home, my second childhood home. We moved in there when I was around maybe 6 or 7 years old. The house that we lived in had this hallway that connected the whole of the house, all the way from the back of the house to the front of the house. Quite literally ran all the way down the center of the house. And I remember charging back and forth, most vivid memories, charging back and forth up and down the hallway with Thunderhawk and Switchblade. I remember that vividly, with charging back and forth down the hallway. And I remember that like it was yesterday, really, really strange. But then I remember things like Slingshot. Now, Slingshot was probably not one of the most popular Mask vehicles, but I remember playing with that one, rolling it up and down again, the same hallway, and the jet spinning round. And so they're my most vivid memories. I remember playing with Transformers, Galvatron. I remember very, very vividly because that's connected to quite a strong childhood memory of mine. I remember in '86, I was 7 years old. I've got a twin brother, and we were both 7, and our grandparents used to come on a weekend. Now I remember, if we played it right, I don't know how it worked, but our parents used to give us pocket money. But the way I remember it, it wasn't every week. I don't know why. It wasn't every week. But if we got to a weekend and our parents give us some pocket money, we knew our grandparents were coming, they always give us some money. So if you played it right, we had 2 sets of pocket money. I remember that. And this particular weekend, our grandparents were coming and they took us to a daytime showing of the '86 Transformers movie. And when we came out, it was a daytime showing, because obviously we were only kids, 7 years old. Came out and they said, right, we're going to take you to Woolworths. Now, when I was 7, Woolworths was the shop. It had the biggest toy aisle ever. It was a great store. And they took us to Woolworths. We didn't know we were going, and they just said, right, pick one Transformer each. And I remember my brother picked Ultramagnus. We'd just seen the Transformers movie, so we went for the big hitters. My brother picked Ultramagnus, and I picked Galvatron. So Galvatron, again, is connected to a very vivid sort of childhood memory, man. And I remember that one, running around the estate. I remember I played Army with it. I remember we were playing Army as kids, and I don't want to use a plastic Army gun. I want to use Galvatron. So I used to run around with Galvatron in gun mode and playing Army with it. Cool. Some of my mates weren't chuffed because they had these plastic guns that didn't really do anything. And I was running around with Galvatron. But yeah, it's a strange one because, I mean, Star Wars is still very much my number one collecting line.
Yeah.
But I don't have huge amounts of memories of Star Wars, playing with Star Wars as a kid. So I don't know if that came. I mean, I did have them. I remember getting the Rancor one Christmas. But I think my main focus with Star Wars collecting came from the movies when I was growing up. The first Star Wars movie I watched was Jedi, believe it or not, in around, I think, '86, because I don't think they came out on VHS till a long time after the movies were made.
Right. Yeah.
So I remember watching Return of the Jedi in my cousin's bedroom. He was a few years older than us. He'd just got a TV for his birthday, and his mum and dad bought him a video recorder and Return of the Jedi on VHS. So we watched that. Then I watched Star Wars, and then I watched Empire. That was the last one I watched. And I think that's when my obsession with Star Wars came. And so that was sort of quite a long time after the toys had sort of finished. So yeah, it's a really strange one. My memories are very scattered, but the ones I do have are quite vivid.
Yeah. I mean, I can see your mask collection behind you. Are they the figures that you had as a kid, or have you recently got those?
No, unfortunately, nothing in this room is from my childhood. You know, that's the one sort of sad thing when I look around. This is everything in this room I've reacquired in the last sort of 11 years. The only thing that survived from my childhood, I've got my original 3 VHS Star Wars tapes. They've been with me from when I was a kid. But unfortunately, all my toys, I think when my parents felt I was a bit too old for them. Started sort of squirreling them away onto car boot sales and giving them away to the neighbour kids. And so unfortunately, I lost everything from childhood. Yeah,
No.
I can't put up much of a fight though.
I mean, I'm pretty much the same. I mean, everything I've got now it's been over the years. Nothing is from my childhood. And I was saying in a previous episode that I can look at those Star Wars figures and think, yeah, fantastic. You know, this reminded me of my childhood. Yeah. But then again, on the flip side of that, when I look at them, I think, well, these weren't mine from my childhood. But I still get that same that nostalgia pull, definitely. And I've got to. I love the way you're displaying that mask stuff there with the boxes as well. Because I think the artwork on those. I mean, I remember those on the shelves as a kid and stuff like that. So I think that's a pretty cool way of displaying those. Now you're talking about Transformers the movie. I watched that as a kid, and I didn't really. I don't know. I enjoyed it, obviously, and I've not seen it for a long time. And I watched it about 3 or 4 weeks back, and wow, I've forgotten how 80s music that was, and I didn't realize there was so much music in it and stuff like that. I mean, do you find that when you watch something as a kid, you think this is absolutely the bee's knees, and then when you get older and stuff like that, you go back and watch it again, and it doesn't seem the same, although it is the same cartoon. You just have a different feel towards it.
Yeah, well, I guess watching everything through adult eyes is different. I mean, you know, the Transformers the movie, I loved it as a kid. You watch it now, and personally, I still do really enjoy it. You know, you still kind of think as a kid, you saw sort of Optimus Prime, you know, all the original guys sort of getting sort of killed, and you're like, what is this really happening, kind of thing. But through adult eyes, I still really enjoy the '86 Transformers movie. Weirdly, what I won't say I don't enjoy. I was about to say I don't enjoy it. That's not true. I absolutely do enjoy it. But what doesn't really hold up is Mask. You know, I watch the Mask cartoons. I still watch them now. And the Mask cartoons, I sometimes struggle with a few of them. And I don't know if that's just Scott and T-Bob, maybe, because nobody seems to like those guys. But the Mask cartoon and He-Man as a cartoon.
The original Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
The original He-Man, I
often watch those cartoons now and think, they really don't hold up as an adult, but I guess they're not made for adults, are they? So
no, exactly.
They weren't there. But Transformers the movie, I still really enjoy, really do. Yeah, and like you say, that might be kind of down to the soundtrack and things like that. But yeah, I still watch them regularly. But the Mask cartoons, sometimes you watch a couple of episodes, you think they're a struggle to watch. Yeah,
I've not seen Mask in ages. I vaguely remember seeing them on the TV as a kid, and I've got to say I enjoyed them. I enjoyed watching it back as a kid. But I find even now some of the animated series of today, like there was Camp Cretaceous that I watched. That was a Netflix thing about Jurassic Park, and it was going on. But I mean, the dinosaurs were absolutely awesome. I loved the dinosaurs, but then some of the storyline was a very childish, and it was obviously because it's aimed at kids. And what else was there? I liked the Transformers trilogy, the War for Cybertron trilogy. I thought that was I really enjoyed that, and I know people said it's quite dark and it's not the same as the original. No, it's not going to be the same as the original, is it?
No,
you know, but I like what they did with it.
The same as Revelations, I guess, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I didn't mind that. The animation was cool. Do I like what they've done with it? You know, I don't want to get too political, but no, not really. But overall, I guess it wasn't too bad. I didn't realize that was coming out, so I didn't know what Kevin Smith had said about it and what it was going to be like. And then obviously all the fanboys jumped on, and it was all different. And you know where the story goes from there. Anywho, so you said you didn't play too much with Star Wars. So what would you have said your favorite toy line was as a kid? You mentioned Transformers and Mask.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one because I think sat here now, I want to say Star Wars was my favorite because I've said in a previous video that Shabby from Shabby Geek asked me on a viewers questions video if I had to give up Star Wars or Mask, which one would I give up as a toy line in my collection? And I said I would give up Mask. Now that really, when you look behind me, that sounds like a crazy statement. But Star Wars is still very much my main, and I know I had it as a kid, and I know I played with it a lot as a kid. It's just my most vivid memories are with Mask. I don't know why that is. But yeah, I think I would still say Star Wars was my main toy line that I played with as a kid. just not the one I remember playing with as much as a kid. I remember playing with
Wow.
Transformers and Mask more, which is a
Yeah.
strange thing. But I know we had a lot of Star Wars. I know we had it. I remember having a toy box full of it, and it was definitely the most prominent toy line that I had when I was a kid. But most of my
Yeah.
memories are not Star Wars based. Weirdly,
Wow.
the
Wow.
one I remember it snowing, and I remember we got the ATA out in the backyard, and we sort of dug a snow speeder into the snow and pretended that it had been shot
Yeah.
down. And so we used to do things like that. And I remember getting into trouble because the house I was talking about with the hallway, we had a very, very small. It wasn't really a front garden. It was like a little front sort of walk area, like a little yard. You walked 3 or 4 yards out your front door, then you had a wall and a gate, and you would be onto
Yeah.
the street. But it had a small flower bed. And I remember my mum going crazy because it had a small flower bed and it was just mud. And then we had some sort of old, sort of dead rose bushes, no leaves on them, no roses, just like sticks with thorns sticking out, and then mud. But I remember as a kid thinking, kind of looks like Dagobah. And I used to dig holes in the mud and then put stones around them to look like a swamp. And then I'd just go get jugs of water and fill it and fill it and fill it. Now, obviously, it would run away, but eventually, if you filled it enough, eventually it would sit. It would sit. And then I was chucking Artu in the swamp, and I just used to make such a mess of this little front flower bed. So I used to get into a lot of trouble for that. But so I do remember doing that. But yeah, I had not huge amounts of memories about Star Wars toys as a kid, but definitely my main line. Definitely.
Yeah, that is awesome. So when did you realize you were collecting then? Because you said you got to a certain age and your mum or your parents, they sort of like started moving your toys on and stuff like that. So I mean, you said it was like 11 years ago, but I mean, did you have any sort of like dabbling with collecting in those between years, or was it just totally nothing at all?
No, it was nothing at all. I remember, well, I mean, as we got older, my brother and myself got very heavily into sports. We discovered sport and probably a few other things as well. But so it kind of just started. I mean, I never didn't love my childhood toys, and I used to often sit and think, oh, I remember having that and see something that in somebody else's collection or whatever. I remember having that, but I never ever thought about recollecting as such.
Yeah.
And then about, I was in my late 20s, and I split with my ex-partner at the time, managed to get my own place. And I remember thinking, first maybe week or two that I was in my own place, I remember looking around thinking, I can have anything I want in here now. I don't have to worry about decorate, someone else's opinion of decoration, what I have. I can have anything I want in here. And I started seeing what now my current partner, we met each other at work, and I remember being off work. I had to have an operation. I was off work and recovering, but whilst I was off, I had a birthday, and my partner Rachel bought me a Luke Jedi Luke lightsaber, a green lightsaber.
Okay.
But it was like what you would call like a mid-range one. It wasn't like the Master Replica ones. It was maybe one you get from Argos, but it lit up properly and had all the lights and sounds and everything.
Yeah.
And I remember getting that and thinking, wow, what a great gift. This is brilliant. I can swing this around. It does all the noises. It's brilliant. I was lighting it up when it was dark. So straight away, I sort of thought, oh, what else can you get? What other ones can you get? So I jumped onto eBay, onto the internet, found a couple of others. Then I found the Master Replica one. So I picked up a couple of those. And then that branched out into the Star Wars figures. That branched out into I started doing like buying outfits. I started like I got some Stormtrooper armor, and all of a sudden that just ended up what you kind of see behind you now. So
that is incredible.
Wow. Rachel is very, very understanding and very supportive of what I do and the collection. But I often remind her that she bought me the very first item that probably kicked it all off.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Listen, this is your fault. If you hadn't bought me that lightsaber, this wouldn't be here. Well, I like that.
The thing is, on a serious note, there is every chance that it wouldn't be. But yeah, it was just a great gift, and I've still got it. And yeah, I often look at it and think that was where it started. And yeah, it was quite literally like that. That led to a couple of other Master Replica sabers. It led to then Star Wars figures. Then it led to other things. And before you knew it, yeah, that was that. And it just became. Obviously, it was a hobby to start with, but very quickly became an obsession because nostalgia is a powerful feeling. When you start being reminded of your childhood and a simpler time and a simpler life, I guess. I'm very. I mean, my childhood was turbulent in places. My mum and dad split when we were very young, but largely I had a very, very happy childhood, and you know, we were spoiled in really that if we wanted any toys, we generally got them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just when I think back, it was a happy time, and that's kind of where all this comes from. You know, I'm not
So
concerned about value or anything like that.
no, that's awesome. That's great. I was going to say, so are you surprised with how quickly things sort of like snowballed by like getting all this and then this and then this and then this? Is it all? I mean, I
Yeah,
know you said it's like it's been 11 years, but I mean, you know, I've roughly been about the same, if I'm
yeah,
honest.
yeah. I mean, it is surprising how I think it's more surprising how your collecting taste changes over the years, because like I say, when
Yeah,
I first started, it was purely Star Wars. Just
yeah,
everything was Star Wars. Everything was based on Star Wars. But then, of course, if I'd have known then what I know now, I'd have probably straight away
mm,
gone for the last 17 figures, and I'd have got them straight away.
yeah,
But I weren't as clued up, obviously, then as what I am now. The information that I didn't know then, than what I know now. So yeah, it snowballed quickly, but I was more surprised in the end of how my taste and how my collecting style has changed in that time.
mm,
Because Star Wars now, the way the prices are, once upon a time, every single item I bought was Star Wars based. Whereas I don't think
yeah,
I've bought anything Star Wars now for easily 6, 7, 8 months. And I'm really enjoying branching out into other toy lines. So
yeah,
the biggest surprise to me is not necessarily how fast it sort of grew and snowballed, because you know, I do get obsessed with things at times.
mm,
But I think the biggest surprise to me is how diverse my collection has become.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
only ever meant to be Star Wars. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I crikey. I mean, I'm exactly the same. I mean, I started getting the vintage collection, not the vintage collection, the original Kenner collection,
yeah,
and so the first figure I got back into collecting again was Dengar. I thought, you know what, he's quite cool. I quite like bounty hunters, so it was in like I'll get the rest of the bounty hunters to get all of them. Then I thought, well,
yeah.
Empire's my favorite film, so what I'll do then is I'll
Same.
get all the rest, you know, the best pin figures, and then it just ended up like that. And it was originally just vintage figures and vintage vehicles from the Star Wars Kenner line.
Yeah,
And then 2020 came along, and yeah, you know, I jumped onto to YouTube to cure boredom, and I
yeah.
found the
Same.
likes of
Yeah,
like Chasing 80s Toys and Scuba Pete and those guys,
yeah,
and
yeah.
Foosh, to name but a few. And all of a sudden it's just like, wow, there's such a whole range of plastic goodness that you can collect and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And
yeah, absolutely.
it's incredible, definitely.
Yeah, well, it's very much like the video that I put out a few weeks ago, because I think it's a really interesting topic of how easily influenced we all are. Now, until 2 years ago, very
Yeah.
much like you, I started YouTube. I kind of think I'd already decided to do a channel, but it coincided with lockdown, and I thought it's a good time to do it
Mm,
because we're all at home. So I started doing that, but until then, it's obviously an extremely lonely hobby. Now, I don't know anybody locally, friends or family locally, that are into this kind of thing.
mm.
So it was very lonely, you know, doing it on my own. And then you maybe get something that you were really happy to get and you wanted to tell someone about it, but nobody really cared, you know.
Does your wife collect, or does she
No,
just sort of encourage you, go on,
she
and leaves you
supports
to it?
you know, she supports what I
Supports, yeah.
do. I mean, don't get me wrong, she does buy me stuff. You know, she
Yeah, yeah.
by default now she actually knows quite a bit about collecting and the toys that I collect and things like
Mm,
that. But no, she's not really a collector as
okay.
such. Um,
Yeah,
but it was a very lonely hobby. And then, you
yeah.
know, we started YouTube, and like yourself, I've met people like Chris, Scuba Pete, Jeff Barker, the USR
Mm,
boys, VTR Dave, you know, a lot of people. And all of a sudden, we've got this community where we can share it with and enjoy other people's collections as well.
yeah.
So
Oh,
all of a
definitely.
sudden, it feels far more enjoyable. I mean, I
Mm,
loved it before, but it's far more enjoyable now when you can pick something up and you can share it with your
yeah,
mates and go, look what I got, you know.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's really, really, you know, made it so much better for this
No,
community, definitely.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So with all the toys that you've got and all of your collection,
Mm.
what would you class as your most prized piece in your collection?
Oh God, that's tough because there's a few.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, that, because I've got two or three items that I would, they're maybe not, and it's nothing to do with value or anything like that, but I would class them as very important because they've been given to me as gifts. So, for example, I've got a switchblade that was gifted to me, but I was struggling to get a complete switchblade, and then VTR Dave gifted me one for my birthday a couple of years ago now. So that's very, very sort of dear to my collection because of more how I came about it and how I got it. If I had to run in here and only grab one thing, I would probably grab my original 12 Star Wars mail away display stand with my original 12 figures on it, only because it took me a long time to get. And I think, yeah, it's just one of those pieces that straight away my eye goes to it when I walk in. But I've got a lot of pieces. I mean, my Stormtrooper armor that I'd want to, but that's a great big trunk. I probably wouldn't have time to grab that. So, yeah, it would probably be my original 12 mail away stand with the figures on.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, I've seen that in the photograph or one of the pictures that you sent, and I've got to say, I really do like that. That is pretty cool. And talking to VTR Dave, I had the pleasure of meeting him at a Sandown Toy Fair.
I saw the photo.
Back. Yeah, bless him, and BOE there as well. I don't know if you've chatted to BOE, but yeah, they're great guys.
I do occasionally speak to him. I've never met either, unfortunately. I hope to meet them in person one day, but.
Well, I felt quite bad because he came up and he introduced. Well, he's obviously spoken to BOE before, and then he goes, "Oh, you're Stu," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "I'm Peter." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know, yeah." So, but yeah, he actually that day got one of the figures, the Star Wars figures, and sent it over to Super Awesome Geek, John Adams.
So he got the prototype, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So. You've explained your most prized piece. Do you have a grail piece? Is there something that you would want above everything else?
Yeah, well,
anything else?
Yeah, well, the display stand was my grail piece. Like I said, luckily I managed to pick that up a couple of years ago now. Weirdly, I'd spent sort of almost 10 years searching for that, and then when I did find one, it was from a guy who lives 10 miles down the road. Strangely enough, so I actually went and collected it. A grill. There's probably two.
Okay.
Now I work on a very modest budget, so when I say they're a grill piece, they are to me. I know to some people they won't be, but to me they are. So I would love a carded vintage Luke Bespin figure.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just love one of that. Definitely love one of those. And there's a vehicle in the Mask line. It's a vehicle called Rat Fang, and it's part of a playset called Laser Command. And it was one of the later vehicles to be released, and that goes for crazy money now. I would like that. I've accepted. I don't think I'll ever own one, but between those two, those are two grail pieces that I would currently be chasing if I thought I could afford them. But Rat Fang Laser Command easily goes for sort of £400-500 now.
Wow,
there's just no way I could justify that amount of money. And similar sort of thing for a carded Luke Bespin as well. If it's in decent condition, you're sort of looking at $400-500. So I couldn't justify that amount of money.
No, well, I'm with you on that. It's the current climate we're living in. It's there's more important things. But I mean, has with that Mask playset and vehicle that you mentioned, has that always commanded that price, even way back when you started collecting, or has it just suddenly gone up? Or
well, to be honest, Stuart, I couldn't tell you because, like I say, way back sort of 11 years ago when I started collecting, Mask wasn't on my radar at all. And then sort of maybe 2-3 years ago, I remember thinking we had the reissues. I mean, it was longer than 3 years ago. We had the reissues of Transformers. They reissued those. Then we had reissues of the Tales. We had we've got Origins He-Man. They reissued the Star Wars Retro Collection. We got G.I. Joe reissues. And I started to think, how cool would it be if we got Mask reissued? Surely somebody's thinking about doing Mask.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting, thinking, surely they're going to be reissued because everything's been redone. And then I found out, I don't know how true this is, but I found out that the reason why Mask will not be redone is because nobody really knows who owns the trademark. Even though they were Kenner, and obviously Hasbro bought out Kenner, apparently Hasbro don't own the trademark. So there's a real grey area about why Mask can't be reissued. So when I found that out, I thought, right, well, I'll just start picking up the vintage ones. So I started picking up vintage Mask around 2.5 years ago. So my knowledge, so at that point, I started then learning about the toys and and getting back into it. So I couldn't tell you if before that, Laser Command sort of demanded that kind of money, because I only started really getting back into Mask 2.5 years ago, and 2.5 years ago it was still commanding that. So I don't know when that You know, if earlier than that, you know, 10 years ago, you probably could pick it up a lot cheaper. But when I first started collecting masks, it was already at that price, and it's not getting any cheaper.
No,
In fact,
it won't get
it's only
cheaper.
going
No.
up.
So with your mask, then, I mean, are there many vehicles that you've got left to collect, or have you pretty much got all of them apart from that one?
No, there's a lot more to collect,
really?
but
Wow.
yeah, well, there was four. The cartoon only ran for two years, but the toy line ran for three, from 85 to 88. But when I started collecting masks, I sort of made a decision that I only wanted to collect the vehicles I remember. So
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I had certain vehicles, and I watched the cartoon. Series 1 and 2 were the vehicles that I remember.
Yeah.
It then got into a third series, which was called the Racing Series, and then the fourth series, which was called Split Seconds. The vehicles from Series 3 and 4, I don't really recall from a kid. So there's no real pull to them. So what I said to myself when I started collecting masks was, I'm going to try and complete all of Series 1 and 2 vehicles, which I've almost done. Right. And then from Series 3 and 4, I'll just cherry pick, because some of them are really not great. There is a handful of vehicles from 3 and 4 that I would definitely want, but the rest of them I'm not that bothered about. I wanted to complete Series 1 and 2 because they're the vehicles I remember from childhood, and they're what give me that nostalgic kick.
Yeah.
So I've completed Series 1. I'm 2 vehicles away from completing Series 2, and then after that, I'll just sort of pick the ones I like, and I'll be quite happy with that.
Cool. I mean, I've got to say, I do like the scale of the vehicles. I think that's a great scale. It really is.
I mean, a lot of people were upset about the figure size, but
but I mean, even then, I mean, the figures were fairly basic, but I mean, they look good. Did they bend at the knees? I can't remember.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they've got good articulation for 2.75 figures.
Yeah. See, I mean, I would listen. I never minded the size of the figures. I thought the scale to the figures and the vehicles I thought were great. I mean, you know what it's like when you're collecting the Star Wars stuff in the 3 3/4 inch, and even if it was G.I. Joe. I mean, some of the vehicles were pretty big. You know, so I mean, it's a great way to. And were they affordable back in the day? I can't remember what the prices were like.
Back in the day, you could probably pick up and in fact, I'll be able to tell you exactly, Stu. So back in the day, you could pick up a box Thunderhawk for $10.99. That was what it was on the shelves.
Is that price still on there? Is it?
Yeah, one of them is. Yeah.
That's
so yeah, I mean, Condor $5.99. So I mean, God, could you imagine?
Well, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell anybody. But I bet you didn't pay $10.99 or $5.99 for those two, did you?
I didn't. No.
I didn't think you did. So, what toy lines do you currently collect? Have you got a single focus on just one toy line, or are you happy to?
No, I generally go through phases, Stu. I tend to have phases now where, because you see, obviously, I'm not a completist, so I'm not concerned about getting everything. The only line I want to complete is the vintage Star Wars figures. I want to get the 96. After that, I'm quite happy just to get the figures I want from a particular toy line. I'm usually quite happy with the car characters. So, no, I mean, obviously, Star Wars is always my main focus, still is, always will be. But because I'm at a certain stage of Star Wars now where I want to complete the figures, and the last 11 figures that I need are all 11 from the last 17. So I've got to be really, so I've got to be careful with that. So I'm trying to just bide my time with that, and I'll pick them up as and when. So because that's where I am with Star Wars, I've now jumped onto other lines. So currently, I'm always still look at Mask every day. The 2 vehicles that I'm missing, I still chase those every day. So I'm always on that. But one line that I'm probably say I'm quite passionate about at the moment, and I'm sort of concentrating on, is Brave Star. I've just started picking up Brave Star. Again, I used to have a couple as a kid. So yeah, Brave Star is a line that I think is great, and it's not a particularly big line. There are a few figures in there, but again, I'm not concerned about completing it, but it's not a huge line, so you can get a good handful of car characters, and that satisfies me generally. I mean, like 3030 Brave Star's horse is crazy money now. I've no idea why it's demanding the kind of money that it is, but to get 3030, you're looking at 150 to £200. Again, I'm not in a position to pay that. But I'm very lucky that I've got you probably will have. I've got certain people that keep an eye out for me. I keep an eye out for them if I know they want something. And I've got a friend who was very, very kind to me, and he picked up a couple of Brave Star figures complete, and he gave me them for a steal. So a complete Brave Star at the moment, maybe 60, 70 quid on eBay, but I got it for not even half that. So I get a lot of the time, it's not what you know. It's who you know. But I'm very lucky that I get a lot of help. But yeah, Brave Star at the moment, I'm quite big on, and always Mask. Star Wars has taken a bit of a backseat.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, there's just so much of it, especially with the vintage collection as well. Now, you know,
it never ends, does it?
It doesn't, because you get the new series come out, and then you think, oh god, and and I've had to cancel loads of pre-orders, and that's not just for Star Wars. I mean, are you confined to just buying one scale? Do you go for 6-inch as well?
No, I mean, I've not just going on to vintage collection. I have a handful of vintage collection stuff. I've not got into that because it's just such a vast line and it just keeps going. So it frightens me a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I did. No, I'm not. I won't say I'm a 6-inch collector. The only Black Series figures, I've got a handful of Boba Fett's, and I did buy a couple of years back. I started buying the 40th anniversary Empire Strikes Back carded Black Series figures, just because it's my favorite. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. And I just thought I'd quite like to have those. Still missing a few of those, but other than that, I wouldn't class myself as a 6-inch figure collector. No, I do have some, but I don't chase them.
Again, it's something that I had to stop. Well, not stop. I've put the brakes on just slightly. Now it's my main focus for next year will be the Black Series, what do you call it? Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary cards just because of the card backs. And I've got the Star Wars. I've got all the Star Wars ones from A New Hope. I've got all of the Empire Strikes Back ones.
Yeah, excellent.
And I thought, well, I Return of the Jedi, but they've only doing so many. I think they're doing about five or six. I think that's all I've seen. But then you've got
quite expensive as well, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is the price is going up. I mean, I remember starting collecting them, they're about 13, 14 pound. You're paying well into the 20 quid now for these figures, and it's the same with the vintage collection. But to be fair, a lot of the toy lines, the prices have gone up, and I think McFarlane Toys are the only ones that are keeping their figures at a reasonable, affordable price. So I'm quite into those, especially when it comes to like the Joker and Harley Quinn and stuff like that. I do sort of like get those, but I mean this day and age. I mean, do you know a guy called John Ruler, the action figure grader?
Yes, I've heard of him. I've not seen a lot of his stuff, but I do know him. Yeah,
he did a couple of videos last week on the Hakes auction. Oh God, it was all vintage Star Wars, and some of the stuff. I mean, the prices that people are paying for. 79,000 for a carded figure. It's just, you just think how the other half live, because that 79,000. That I think. Well, my wife would practically divorce me if I spent that much money on a figure. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, to me, that would be life-changing money to me. If I got, let's just say 80,000, if I got 80,000 pounds and said to Rachel, I'm going to buy one Star Wars figure with that, I'd be out the door. My stuff would be getting chucked out, and rightly so.
Yeah, definitely. But I can't get my head around how people in this current climate, with what's going on in the world, with the cost of living crisis, the energy bills and all that malarkey, food going up, that they can quite happily just, there you go.
Yeah, well, I guess obviously we don't know who these people are, but they're obviously very, very, very wealthy people, and I dare say you're not going to drop £80,000 on a Star Wars figure unless you've got it disposable. So we don't know who these people are, but I mean, look, if you're able to do that, then fair play to you. But God, could you imagine? My feet would not touch.
I can't. No, likewise. I think I'd get knocked into next week. You were saying about your last 17 Star Wars figures.
Yes.
Which ones of those do you need to get?
Well, rather than say the ones I need to get, it's probably easy to tell you the ones I've got. So the ones I've got, because I always forget once I start going through them, I forget. So the ones I've got Stormtrooper Luke. I've got The one that everyone's got. I've got Anakin, Stormtrooper Luke. I've got Endor Luke. I've got Han and Carbonite, and I've got 2 of the Ewoks. I always forget the Ewoks. I've got, is it Paplu and Lumat? I always forget my Ewoks.
Yeah.
So I've got Anakin, Luke in Stormy Gear, Endor Luke, Han and Carbonite, and 2 Ewoks. I think it's Lumat and Paplu. So they're the 6 I've got. So I need 11.
Yeah. Well, I'm not ashamed to say it, but I've got the Luke in Stormtrooper disguise. I got him from Stan Solo. I don't know whether you're a purist or not.
No, I'm not at all. I mean, don't get me wrong. What I'll say to you, Stu, what I've said to everybody, when it comes to the Star Wars figures, I want them all to be original. But I always say to people, I do have some reproduction stuff in my collection.
Yeah.
I've no issue with it. I've no issue with it whatsoever. I am not in any way a purist. I do have, like I say, I do have some. I've got the, I don't know if you can see it actually. Just up there, I've got the Iconicon Boba Fett from Stan Solo.
Oh, okay,
I love it. I love his stuff. I think what he's doing is exceptional. But when it comes to the 96, I'd like my figures to be original figures. If I'm totally honest, I don't mind if the blaster in their hand is a reproduction. But I want my figures to be the original figures. But I absolutely have no issue with repro stuff, none whatsoever.
So would you rather get the original over getting like a Stan Solo one just for the time being? So then when you do have the money, you can then get him just so you can have him in your collection, or would you just rather not spend that on Stan Solo and just wait for the right time to get the original?
Yeah, for now, I would rather just wait. Okay. I would rather just wait. But like I say, I do buy some stuff off Stan Solo. I've got no. I think his work is brilliant. I think what the quality of what he does is great. But yeah, at this point, I think I'll just wait. And the reason why, again, is not because I wouldn't want a Stan Solo Last 17 figure in my collection, but I think if I was to do it, I think I'd then stop chasing. I think I would just accept that that'll do, and I don't want to do that.
I see what you mean.
I think I will look at it because I've seen one I can see one in my collection. I don't think I'll then chase an original, and so I don't want to do that. But no, I'm not a purist in any way. No.
Because those figures now, I think they are. When I last looked, you're looking over £100.
Oh, easy. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that I think if I jumped on it, because I'm not bothered about condition, Stu. That's one thing that is in my favour.
Okay.
If I get an Imperial dignitary, I don't care if he's got nose rub. I don't care if So I always think I'll probably pick him up. I reckon I could pick him up. Maybe the A-wing pilot, probably for Imperial Gunner, possibly for less than 100, but. Once you get to Yak Face, you know that you're going to be talking 300 for that.
Well, listen, I mean, I was lucky enough to collect Yak Face and a Manaman fairly early on.
Yeah,
in the collection. So I think they're probably the couple. I mean, and even then they were a lot of money, then. So I have no idea what they're going for now. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I've had to sort of like tighten the belt a lot, and I wish, looking back now, I'd have got the rest of the 96 and the rest of the last 17 before I got anything else. But
yeah, absolutely. Hindsight's wonderful, isn't it?
It is. But I mean, me looking on eBay and looking at these toy channels and stuff like that, it was like being back in a toy shop again. Like, wow, look at that. I didn't realize it did this and I didn't realize it did that. Yeah. It's like when I first started getting the Black Series, I didn't even know Black Series existed. And I looked and I thought, wow, these are great. And these look absolutely fantastic. And it was more Black Series than the vintage collection. Then I saw like people like Bosk's Bounty and Nick from Only One Kenobi, and I thought, oh, look at these, look at those cards. And, it's just it's dangerous.
Well, it is, and I think the card backs, especially when it comes to Star Wars, is a big thing for me. I like to collect carded figures rather than boxed figures. The only advantage in my opinion for boxed figures means I can open them. Because if they're carded, you can't take them off the card without destroying the card. So if they're boxed, great, you can kind of take them out. If you want to display them back in the box, you can put them back in the box. But it's like I said earlier, I think it's very interesting how easily influenced we are as collectors. Because there are certain lines in my collection now that I am convinced I wouldn't have if I hadn't seen Shabby do a video on it and go, oh God, I remember those. Yeah, I remember.
He's got a lot to answer for that, Shabby.
He has. In fact, he's got a lot to answer for my video this weekend. But like Centurions, loved Centurions when I was a kid, but completely forgot about them. Totally forgot about them. They weren't even on my radar. And then I saw VTR Dave do a video, and he pulled out some Centurions, and straight away, I remember Centurions onto eBay, picked up some Centurions. So
Yeah.
we're very easily influenced. But like I say, nostalgia is a powerful thing.
It
If you
is.
see
Yeah,
something,
definitely.
you suddenly remember you had it. Because I that happens to me a lot. I
Mm,
forget what I had, and then I'll see something. I had that. I definitely had one of those.
mm.
And yeah, so yeah, I think it's interesting just how much is in my room now when I look around. That if I hadn't started YouTube, I don't think I'd have.
Yeah. Talking to YouTube, what made you? Well, I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but what made you decide to start a YouTube channel, and who were your influences? I know you sort of like briefly touched on it
Yeah, well, I
in the
think
conversation.
nobody necessarily spoke to me about it. Was just something that I kind of I thought about. And then I spoke to Rachel, and I'd just not done anything about it. And I thought,
Mm,
she said, "Look, why don't you start a YouTube channel? People want to see this stuff." I said, "Well, there'll be a million YouTubers and YouTube channels out there doing these kind of videos with far greater collections than mine. Why would anyone care about my collection over the next person's?" And she's like, "Look, what does it matter? Just if you want to do it, do it." So Rachel encouraged me to do it. I'd kind of already thought about it, but Rachel sort of gave me the push, and a
yeah.
friend at work also kind of gave me a little bit of a push as well. So I wouldn't say anyone influenced me to do the channel. However, there are channels that influence the content.
Yeah.
There's three channels that I basically saw right early on. In fact, probably the very first channel that I ever watched videos, I jumped into one of their live streams, which was Michael French and Retro Blasting.
Okay.
I think the first time I started to watch YouTube with any kind of regularity, weirdly, Michael was doing a Saturday night live stream on Empire Strikes Back. So, of course, my favorite movie. I jumped in. I was like, "Wow, live stream on Empire Strikes Back. Let's jump in there." So it was the very first thing I did. I remember firing a couple of questions in the chat for Michael, and he answered them, which was really nice as well.
Mm,
Got chatting to a couple of people in the chat. And I've watched Retro Blasting ever since. I think it's a fantastic channel. So Retro Blasting definitely influenced my channel. Analog Toys definitely influenced my
yeah.
channel. And the last main one was Toy Polloi, Dave at Toy Polloi. Early on, I did do a few restorations, and they were very much
Mm,
influenced by Toy Polloi. So those three channels initially, I would say, influenced my content. Obviously,
okay.
since then, I've found a lot of channels and try to keep
Yeah.
up with everybody. But yeah, those are probably the three that I first discovered, and I still watch now. I think they're brilliant channels. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the three I've got coming up on the series.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I
Right.
won't say.
Okay.
I won't say
No,
who
no,
it is.
no. That's cool.
I won't say
I'll
who it is.
look
But
forward
yeah,
to
yeah.
that. I'll
One of
look
the
forward
three.
to
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So yeah, it's how are you finding doing YouTube? I mean, content wise and stuff like that, and you know,
Yeah.
getting on okay.
Yeah. I mean, I almost quit after about 2 months. I've told the story to a few people now, and I think it's quite a nice. I think it's quite a nice story in the end. I remember doing it for 2 or 3 months, and I think after about three
Mm,
months, I sat at the dinner table with Rachel, and I said, "I'm not. I'm going to stop this. I've only got like 30 subscribers. 3 months. I don't know. I don't really know what I expected because I had no idea about YouTube. Didn't really know how it worked. Didn't really know
yeah.
how quick or slow the channel would grow. I'm not quite sure what I was expecting, but." After about 3 months, I had about 30 subscribers, and I just sat at the dinner table and said, I'm not going to bother with this. Nobody cares about my channel. Why am I bothering? It's a lot of time and effort for very little return. So I was going to wrap it up. And then I remember Dave from Toy Ploy put out a community post about his last ever episode of Pocket Money Memories. And he was
Mm,
inviting people to get in touch and submit a video and try to recall what they used to spend their pocket money on. And I just sort of thought, I'll reply to it. And loads of people do want to do it. It's the last one, big channel. I don't see myself getting anywhere. And Dave responded and said, I'd love to put you in the last episode. Send a clip over, a couple of minutes long. Yeah, and I'll put it in. And I was amazed. I was like, what? This guy's got back to me. He's got a huge channel. He's got back to me and said he wants to use something. So I firmly believe, so I filmed something, sent it to Dave. Sure enough, he put it in. And I firmly believe to this day, if Dave hadn't have responded to me, my channel would have gone. I would have
wow.
wrapped it up.
Wow.
But it gave me that little bit of people are bothered. This guy's got
Yeah.
back to me and said, "Oh yeah, send
Mm,
something and I'll use it." So it just gave me that little bit of belief and that little bit of a push to keep going. And maybe people are bothered. And then not long after that, I met the USR lads, so Shabby, Tez, and Matt.
mm,
And the rest, as they say, is history. Met a lot of people through those guys. The amount of support I get now is unbelievable. So yeah, that's kind of how it, and I won't give it up for the world now. You know, I often worry about my content, even now, because I think I do everything on my phone from start to finish. My videos are done on my iPhone. I've got no fancy computers. I've got no fancy editing equipment or audio equipment or anything like that. No fancy editing suites. It's all done on my iPhone. So I often worry if the quality is good. When I look at what other people are capable of doing. But other than that, you know, and I'm very lucky to have people around me that just say, look, you know, and I'm not doing it in hope that people blow smoke up my backside. But I've got a lot of people around me that just go, look, what you're doing is great. Keep doing it, you know. So yeah, but I'm a bit of a worrier and born worrier in real life, in normal life. I'm a worrier. You know,
I think that would apply to all sort of people. I mean, I know people that have been doing it for like a long time, and they, you know, they say, well, you know, how can I like freshen up, and how can I do, you know, everybody goes through the same sort of emotions and feelings. I mean, you know, YouTube is a definite roller coaster of a ride, and
you're not kidding.
What got me was how long it took to upload a short 20-minute video to YouTube. I mean, at the time I thought, because it was my first ever video, and I was like, well, blimey, okay, yeah, it took a long time, and you don't realize. And then I have I thought about giving up. I haven't as yet. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think this particular series that I'm doing now has been the saving grace, because I funny enough, I went to do a live stream, and it was going to be a Q&A, a live stream Q&A, where I jump on and people ask. So I advertised it and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm only on Instagram, so it wasn't all over social media. It's just on Instagram, and you know, so I sat there, got ready, and I looked at the chat, and there's no one in the chat, and there's about 2 minutes to go, and I'm bloody hell. And then I went live, and there was no one there, and I thought, I was live for 2 minutes, and I thought, sod it, and I come off, and I thought that was horrendous. So I got rid of the video off of YouTube, and I thought, wow, that was frightening. So then I thought to myself, well, what else can I do? What else, you know, is there for me to do? I mean, you know, people do figure reviews all the time, don't they? You know, so anyway, I just asked some advice on some people, and then I come up with this idea. And Chris Mewa was the first person that was on this series, you know, and I didn't think I was going to get past 1 or 2. And I was leaving messages at the end of every video saying, if you're interested, give me a buzz. Well, no one was getting in contact. So then I chatted to Tim from Bosk's Bounty after we did our episode 4. And I was saying to him, well, I'm advertising it. He goes, don't advertise it or get people to contact you. Reach them. Reach out to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know, I'll do that. But then I thought, well, I'm new. You know, people aren't going to want to sit and chat because they don't know me. Yeah. And then bloody hell, you know, a couple of months later, this is episode, I think 20 or 21. You know, I'm booked up to episode 55 now, you know, and I've had people like Shabby, Matt. I've got loads of different people coming up.
Yeah, you had Scoober on the other week, didn't
you? Well, no, he does a live. I do a live stream with him.
Oh, right. Sorry.
So we do a monthly live stream sort of thing and stuff like that. And it was Scuba that got me back into doing all this in the first place, or got me into doing it. Because I said, you know, I've got like a collection. Do you want to chat? Anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you. God damn it! Why am I waffling on?
No,
I do apologise.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is what it's for me. It's about meeting new people. I think when you got in touch. Now I knew of you, but when you got in touch, I was like, I'm surprised this guy even knows who I am. We've not really spoke before, and of course I want to do it. And I just
stalk people on Instagram. I stalk people on Instagram. I go, who can I chat to? Who can I chat to? And I just put out loads of feelers. So the majority of people get back, and some people have got back and said it's not for them, and I get that. Some people haven't even seen the message, so no, that's okay. It's fine. That's fine. Right, I've got 3 more questions for you. I just waffled on then. I'm so sorry. I might
not at all. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. Do not cut it out. Enjoyed it.
Okay. If you could only collect one toy line, one toy line only, what would it be and why?
Star Wars.
That's simple.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, Shabby asked me this question again about a month or two ago when I did a viewer's question and answers, and he did it on purpose because he knows how much I love Mask. But he said, "Yeah, you've got to give up one." He said, "You've got to give. You can only collect one." Star Wars or Mask, which one would you give up if you had to? And I said, look, it's an agonizing question. It's an awful question because I didn't want to say it out loud. But I said, however, it is an easy one. I said, I'd give up Mask, and I would, purely because Star Wars has just been an ever-present sort of feature of my life from childhood, watching the movies, growing up, and then collecting the toys. It is something that has always been there, always. And I know, obviously, Mask hit us in '85.
Yeah.
Well, Star Wars was before that, you know, and I know I didn't watch the movies until sort of 86 time, but it was there and I had the toys and I knew it was just something that has always been in my life and I've taken comfort from it. There's been times where I've gone through maybe difficult times in my life and I've watched the movies or I've messed around with the toys and they've comforted me. And Star Wars is something that I could not ever stop. And even though I would hate to have to choose, it would be a fairly easy choice in the end. It is just something that, has been an ever-present sort of thing in my life, and I've taken comfort from it in times of sort of difficulty. And even just watching the movies, it used to comfort me. Yeah.
So I'm gonna emphasize that question, and I feel mean for saying this.
No.
If someone come up to you and they had that playset. And you could still only collect.
Are we talking laser command now?
Yeah. If someone come up to you and said, "I'm going to give you this laser command and this vehicle," you would turn around and say, "No, because I'm only collecting Star Wars." Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh wow!
I would.
Even if he's giving it to you and you're not paying for it, he would give it to you.
Well, if I mean,
I suppose. Well, okay. So if he's going to give it to you for nothing, then obviously you're going to take it. If he was selling it at a price that you think, yes, I'm never going to get that price again, it's now or never.
But are we still in a situation where I can only have one or the other though?
Yeah.
So if I take this laser command, I've got to get rid of my Star Wars stuff. I can only have Mask.
Yeah.
No, I'll turn it down.
Really?
Yeah. I couldn't give it. I couldn't give up Star Wars as a toy line. So
wow.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, and I say, as much as I love it, and the thing is, I think Mask is still very much an affordable toy line, you know, when you compare it to Star Wars, and that might be another reason why I love it. I just think it's an amazing toy line, but still very affordable. I mean, obviously, once you get into the box vehicles and stuff, the prices do go up.
Yeah.
But nothing like Star Wars. I mean, Laser Command is an isolated one because that does seem to just command massive money. But the rest of them, you can get even boxed for what I feel are good prices,
especially prices,
especially even on eBay, but especially if you join some of the Facebook groups. I mean, I help run one of the Mask Facebook groups on Facebook, the UK group, and you know, again, if you sit tight in those groups, you can get boxed vehicles for really, really reasonable prices. Now, obviously, you've got to be a little bit realistic on condition. You know, the box might be a bit beaten up or whatever, but it is still an original box with the original vehicle complete. You can pick them up for still really good prices, where you can't do that for Star Wars now. You cannot do that for Star Wars. I went on eBay only last night because I've got a Millennium Falcon that I'd like a box for. Well, to get just an empty box in relatively decent condition, you're looking at £80, £90 just for a box.
That's
and
crazy,
you sort of think, you know, I could probably get 2 box vehicles with Mask for that money.
Yeah.
So that might be part of it as well.
I don't know. Fair play. Fair enough.
But if I had to give up one, I'd give up Mask. Yeah.
Give up Mask. And it's and you say it's just the vintage original Kenner Star Wars that you're collecting. Would you
I do have some modern stuff. Sorry, Stu. I do have some modern Star Wars stuff.
Okay. But so, I mean, obviously you've got like stuff from like I guess the vintage collection. Would you get the original so-called 96 in the vintage collection, or were you just quite happy with what you've got? You wouldn't go down that road?
No, the TVC, I quite literally only pick up the ones I like, and it's generally Boba Fett's. I've got a few different Boba Fett's. I like Leia Bouche. I really like as a figure. Stormtroopers. I like to stick to the Imperial troopers. Other than that, I generally let TVC completely go.
That takes some. Wow. Okay. I wish I had that much discipline
It's just too big. It
that you
frightens
had.
me as a lad.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
too. It
that's the
just
thing,
keeps
isn't it? I
going.
mean, like I say, I've dipped my toe in, and at one point I was right. Okay, I've got to get them all. Got to get them all and stuff like that. But now it's the only figures that I do have on pre-order are the retro collection Star Wars figures from the Empire Strikes Back, the Return of the Jedi, which are coming
Yeah,
out next
same.
year.
Yeah, I've pre-ordered
Plus,
those.
you've got those as well, have you?
I've pre-ordered them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, of course, yeah. And then any other figure that was in the original Canon 96 that they're doing in the vintage collection, then I will
Right.
pre-order those. Anything
Yeah.
like from the Mandalorian now, or only Obi-Wan, or what else did they do? The Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'll just
Yeah.
if I get them, I get them. If not, then it's fine. Because it gets to a point where it costs a lot of money plus
Yeah.
space as well. So that is
Yeah. Well,
that is a
that's the
problem.
other thing in it. Yeah, space.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
like
definitely.
you. I'm totally spaced out now. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, the TVC is. It's such. I mean, I don't know how Tim and Nick, only one can know, but I don't know how they do it. I don't think they've missed a figure, have they? And you
No,
just sort of think,
no.
how on
Oh,
earth?
I think there's a few figures that Tim hasn't got from the I think it was the 1.0 line. You know, the
Right.
original.
Yeah.
The original line. I think there's a couple there that he hasn't got.
Right.
But Nick, crying out loud, I mean, he's got them loose. He's got them all over
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
wall
Yeah.
carded. I mean,
You've got to
that
go
is
sometimes
one
two
phenomenal.
rooms.
Yeah, that is some phenomenal collecting there.
It is.
Kudos to the
Yeah.
guy.
Absolutely.
So, what gives you that toy collecting buzz?
You know what? As a tight northerner, I would say what gives me a great
Right, Northerner.
toy collecting buzz is not only getting that, whatever it is you're chasing at the time, but
Yeah,
a big part of it for me is trying to get what you want at that bargain price.
yeah,
Because my budget is very modest. Every month I get my wages and I set aside an amount of this is right. That's my toy money
yeah,
for this month. But I get a real buzz out of getting what I want for that bargain price. And don't
yeah,
get me wrong, it doesn't always work because sometimes I get offered something and I turn it down thinking, I think I could probably do better than that. And then it skyrockets and I think back, I
yeah,
think, oh, why didn't I take it? But then there are
yeah,
other times where it does work out and I think, no, just bide your time. And then I get an absolute bargain. But the way I've got to collect is very, very modestly. I don't buy minty figures and things because I just can't afford to buy everything in mint condition. I get it as long as I feel it's displayable.
yeah,
I'm happy to buy it, but I get a real buzz out of getting something for what I feel is a total steal of a price.
yeah,
Don't happen that often, but it does happen. And yeah, I rarely pay what I feel is daft money for something.
yeah.
Because I think at some point I will get the opportunity to get it at a bargain price. So yeah, I've got to admit I do love it when I feel I've totally had a steal. Yeah.
So is this just generally going through eBay? Is it going to like toy fairs, or
Yeah, a bit of
car boots and
everything.
stuff like that? Yeah,
Well, not so much car boots. I don't know where you are, Stu, but where I am, you get nothing on a car boot anymore. You used to do, but
yeah. Oh,
generally car booters now know what they've got.
okay.
They know, and if you very rarely see anything on a stall that you think would be worth picking up, and if you do, it's usually at a big price because they know what they've got.
Yeah,
But yeah, eBay. I mean, look, eBay is a bit scrupulous at times. People are
sure.
selling
Yeah,
things, but every so often you can still find a bargain on there. So I still search eBay, but the Facebook groups usually are very good because I think a lot of the time, especially in our mass group, collectors selling to collectors now, they're usually willing to give you a good price. The problem with it, and it's like any toy collector group, I guess, on Facebook or even eBay, is you sell something on the basis that I'm happy to give a fellow collector this vehicle at this price because it's going to go into his collection.
yeah,
There's no real way of knowing if they plan to flip it. And I know people do it, and that's fine. But especially in our group, the mass group, we try to we try to say to people, look, we want to sell things at really good prices, cheaper than eBay prices, but on the basis that
Yeah.
it's for you and your collection.
Yeah.
Rather than think, well, I'm going to get a Thunderhawk at 20 quid and I'm going to stick it on eBay for 50, So that is one thing. But I feel generally now it's not often I'm buying on eBay. I usually buy on Facebook groups because you just get good prices. Yeah, but the problem with that is then you've got to be there at the time. You've got to see it first. You've got to get to it first.
Yeah,
that's part of the problem. I've been on a few 2 or 3 Star Wars Facebook groups thinking, well, I'll get my last 17 on there. They'll be cheaper than eBay, and it's where all the Star Wars trading is going down. Well, unless you sit on your phone all day going refresh, 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 and you're the first one to see it, they're gone in an instant. It's been claimed 10 times over by the time you see it. So that's the only problem.
Yeah, that is a pain. I mean, I know. Well, I'm not on Facebook anymore. I came off a couple of years ago, and because I was spending like too much time on it. So wow, okay. I listening to you say that, I might have to sort of like jump back onto Facebook and.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Stu. I'm not a fan of Facebook. In social media in general, I'm not a fan of. I was not on any platform at all. I have no time for social media, and I wasn't on anything until I started a YouTube channel. And then, unfortunately, it kind of becomes essential if you want to get your channel out there, and and sort of be seen by anybody. So, excuse me. So I'm now on Facebook, but I've got to be honest. I rarely post anything on it as far as general everyday stuff. The only time I generally post on it is when I'm putting a video out on a Sunday. I'll put my video on there. I'm very rare. I'm not one of them people that sticks their dinner on it. This is what I'm watching on TV tonight. This is what I'm eating for my, I put my videos on it.
Yeah, I know.
Same as Twitter and same as Instagram. So I think if you can do it that way, then you'll be fine. Because it does serve a purpose when you're running a YouTube channel. Other than that, no, I'm not a fan of it because there's too much he said, she said on it in there.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the reasons I come off. Is couldn't asked with all that sort of malarkey. Right, we've come to the end. Well, we're coming to near the end. I've got one more question for you, Luke, and that is, what does your collection mean to you?
I've got to be careful. I don't know if Rachel can hear this. Well, I mean, look, it means a lot. I don't think I'd have got this far down the line if it didn't. I think the one thing I love about it is the job that I do isn't particularly physically demanding, but it is mentally demanding and quite stressful. The beauty of my collection and what it means is if I've had the worst day in the world, I could have had the worst day on the planet.
Yeah,
I'll get in and I'll come up here and I'll maybe spend 20 minutes tweaking with a couple of things on the shelf, pick up a couple of figures and mess around with it or whatever it is, and then I'll walk out the room with a smile on my face and completely the day's done, the day's gone. And it's I think it's for me personally, it really creates a sort of strong sort of mental health place for me. My job does involve mental health a little bit here and there. So I always say to people, it really gives me good mental health because the amount of people that I tell about my collection and I used to keep it fairly quiet until YouTube when, you now meet people that do it as well. So you can speak to people, but I used to keep it fairly quiet because you'll know yourself the looks that you get and what you collect toys, but the beauty about it is after they stop laughing, and you explain to them why you do it, it reminds me of my childhood, a simpler time when things were, I had no bills to worry about, mortgage, utilities, food, no sort of responsibilities. It was a happier time, and it reminds me of that time. It takes me back there, and I can spend 20 minutes in that room and be totally at peace when I come back out of it. No matter what my day has been like, I can come out of it and smile and feel completely happy. And and I believe it's good for me, And when you say like that to people, they all of a sudden they stop and they go, "Yeah, I totally get that." And a lot of the time they then turn around and say, "I kind of wish I had something in my life that I could be that passionate about, that I could love that much." So when you explain it to them like that, all of a sudden it becomes a fairly serious sort of, and they take it quite well. So I guess what it means to me is it's happy memories. It
Yeah.
transports me back to when I didn't have any worries, when I didn't have any stresses and strains of everyday life. And I don't in any way collect for monetary value. I don't collect for financial reasons. I don't collect for investment. I collect purely because of what it does for me. I walk in and I smile, and whatever's happened in my day, it's gone. And I love it. I don't intend to stop. So for me, it means sort of. I don't know if this is maybe the best way to put it. It balances me. I feel my collection sort of balances me out and keeps me on the level. Yeah, that's what it does for me. So
Wow,
it
that
means a
is
lot.
incredible. I can totally relate to that. That is how you've described that. I can totally relate to.
Yeah.
I've had a stressful few weeks at work. I came in. I released a video the other week, and it was opening the Batmobile.
Yeah. Right.
Like the one just behind me, just on the shoulder there, and it made me smile. The whole opening of those boxes that I had, and I'd seen what I've got in there, because I kept a lot of stuff by, and I can't remember what I've ordered, but it's therapeutic.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
is the word.
Yeah, good way to put it. Yeah,
I totally relate to that, and yeah, I think many people that do what we do as a hobby and collect, and to be honest, it doesn't have to be toys. It can be, people can collect anything. It's an escapism. It's a form. It's a personal escapism.
Absolutely.
Like you say, it brings balance into your life. It takes away the real life. I mean, because real life isn't going to go away, but you've got to have something in your life that, I mean, I don't smoke, I don't drink,
No.
but you got to have something. And this, I'm like you. I can come in here, sit in here for 20 minutes or so, and just potter around and just go, this is great. This is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And that's it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people go running, some people go to the gym, some people collect handbags, some people collect stamps. It's no different. It's no different. It's just whatever it is in your life that takes you away for that, for that half an hour, whatever it might be. This is ours. It's no different to anything else.
Yeah. Well, listen, I would never collect handbags. Not my thing. Running, that is too much like hard work, mate. I mean, Jesus Christ. These days, I've only got to run a bath when I get tired. Luke, it's come to the end of the interview, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Where can people find you on social media, my friend?
So you can find me pretty much everywhere. Obviously, you'll find me on YouTube, but you'll find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram under the same name. Just type in Reynolds Reviews to all three, you'll find me. I'm probably most prominent on Facebook, really. Twitter, I still find difficult to navigate. It's all a bit messy. So if you're going to get hold of me, you're probably better getting hold of me on Facebook. But yeah, you'll find me on all three.
Awesome. What I will do is I will put the links to all your social media platforms in the description below.
Perfect,
Luke, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure. This hour has once again flown by.
It has.
Really appreciate you taking the time to chat.
Not at all, mate.
It's been enlightening, as all the conversations are. Everybody, thank you to Luke Reynolds. Absolute star.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
No, thanks for having me on, Stu. Really enjoyed it.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And unfortunately, that's come to the end of the chat. All I can say is thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Luke once again. Stay safe, take care, and we shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.